We are live with the Truth Revival. It is Sunday. It's 7 p.m. at your time. It's 4 p.m. my time. This happens right in the middle of my day, man. I really love that. I'm happy to be here as always. My name is Joshua James. This is my soul honey.
Hi, baby. Amber Fields. It's been so long since we've got
I
to be
know.
together like this. I'm
I
really
know.
glad.
I'm home tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I'm home
Yay!
tomorrow. And we have Amber on next Sunday.
I know, that's super exciting. If you
Yeah.
all don't know who Amber Blends is, you need to. It is like one of the most amazing smelling good things I've ever worn in my life. And the story behind it is phenomenal. And compared to what this week is, it's going to be a much positive and enlightening story. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we were actually supposed to do a totally different topic today, which we're going to do in 2 weeks with my friend John Blizzard, with Vanderpump Dogs and doing some donations and talking about what's important and where we're at right now with COVID and how you can benefit helping out the dog rescue. But today we decided to switch topic. I asked Amber if it would be okay, just because I think there's some bigger stuff going on right now, specifically around the rioting and the looting and the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that it's a topic that's sensitive, it's controversial, and I think that there's a lot of opinions that it's people are radically going two different directions with the whole idea. So Amber and I just kind of decided to play devil's advocate with the idea and see. I tend to live a little bit on the more radical side when it comes to some of these things. Amber tends to be a little bit more on the peace and harmony side, but I think that is where America is living right now. It's like we have people who I think are, there doesn't need to be some of these things happening, and some people believe wholeheartedly that this deserves to have some of these things happening. Side note, Amber, I can't see comments, so you're gonna have to carry the comments for tonight.
Got it.
So one of the questions that we have is, do you believe that the behavior of the rioting and the looting with the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd and everything that's going on, do you believe that that is justified behavior, or do you believe that it is not justified behavior? Amber, how do you feel?
I absolutely am against the looting and the rioting. I'm all for the picketing and the protesting. You have a right to your opinion. You have a right to say what you need to say and to feel like that you get to be heard. But I 100% don't believe that you get to tear up the city and ruin businesses to get your voice to be heard. You don't want to be, in my opinion, a second storm to what's already being created. In a world where people want to make a difference, we are adhering to the low vibration. And we're just adding fuel to that fire. You're either a part of the solution or you're a part of the problem. And my heart is just aching for Black people who feel like they don't get to be heard, for Black people who feel like they can't walk down the street and feel safe. I hate that for them. And I'm not white. I'm Filipino. I am not, I have experienced racism. I know what that looks like. Maybe not to the extent of some of my friends, but I refuse to be a part of the problem. And it's not, and I know there's a lot of people out there that don't feel like that they can say what they need to say and they don't. And I think that's okay too. Like, I know you and I talked about before the show started, if you're not saying, if you're not standing up and if you're not saying, but at the end of the day, Joshua, like, does our opinion actually do anything? We're, before social media ever existed, our voices were never heard unless you were picketing, unless you were, down there protesting. But I'll be damned if I'm going to go down there and ruin somebody's livelihood over a business. My husband and my son left last night to go protect, Indianapolis, and they were downtown watching all of this go down. And I am a faith-driven woman, and I have never been so afraid. I may cry through this entire show because I'm heartbroken that our society is hurting. and that people are experiencing hate in this way and causing additional division. They were gone from like 5 in the evening till 3 in the morning. And honestly, Joshua, I didn't know if they were coming home. For the first time in my life, I was petrified that they felt like they needed to take a stand for our city and protect the people, but they were unarmed. They're down there doing what they can to protect our city and it's bigger than that, right? So sorry, I went off on a tangent, but I am just, my heart hurts, my stomach is a mess, and I'm just sad for what's happening in our country and in our world. Ain't nobody talking about the coronavirus anymore. That's for sure. I am
Thank
so
God for that.
right because we're kind of over it, but I'm sad, for what is
I
happening, and I get it.
I
I
feel
100% get it.
I feel indifferent. So I think I'm a little split down the middle, right? It's, we've talked in a previous episode about an interview that I watched with Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk, and he said, he helped lead the peaceful protests in the 1960s with Dr. Martin Luther King. And Oprah was interviewing him, and he said what he learned about peace was that the energy around a lot of what led him in the peaceful protests was anger, but the energy of anger is compressive, and it's tight, right? That the in that he but that it created movement and action in his world. So he became a friend to his anger because it caused him to be in action around some of the things that really deserved his undivided attention. What he
Mm-hmm.
learned through that, though, was that the energy of compassion created the same level of movement and action in his world, yet it was expansive and all inclusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's that component for me, right? I believe that love and compassion is the way that we should live. I love people. You know this about me. I know this about you. And our circle of friends are obsessed with people and loving them in big ways and hugs and all of these things, right? However, the opposing side, the other half of me, is remembers marching 10 years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement first started. And we were up against, I think the boy's name was Trayvon. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still up against the same problems. So at some point, we have to look back historically. Some of the most radical behavior caused the biggest movement and change in the world. Now,
Mm-hmm.
do I agree with the looting and the violence and the vandalism and the destroying our cities across the country? Hell to the no. Like, do I want that to be the integrity of our country? No. And do we just keep doing these peaceful protest marches for the next 10 years while innocent lives keep getting taken by authority figures who have an ego problem that think it's okay just because of a color of a man's skin to just go ahead and take his life when he's unarmed? So it's almost like where in this do we get to say enough is enough? And there was a sign that I saw that really had me thinking. It was, white silence is violence. Okay, so we might be seeing some of these people on the streets looting and vandalizing it and getting physical and destroying things. At the same time, there is an equality between a different type of violence where people are just not saying enough. People are not doing enough. We're not scouring the law enforcement well enough to find this 1%, this 2% of fucking crazy people that are killing people. So
But
it's
it's
like,
not, but it's not like his behavior is not representative of the entire law enforcement,
well, that's why I'm saying it's the 1%,
right?
but we're not scouring well enough. There has to be policies. There has to be systemic things in line that allow us to find these hiding terrorists and get them out. They should not be in the law enforcement whatsoever. And that's truly what it is. I mean, there was a pregnant woman mowed down in Indianapolis. 2 innocent lives taken because some dude thinks he's God. It's crazy. You know, I mean, you see signs as simple as I can't breathe. I mean, that man was on the ground with a knee in his neck screaming for air, and he ended up dead. So,
And we're
you know,
doing, we're
the other thing
causing
is, say it.
we're causing destruction in other cities though over something that, and I get the movement. I want you to speak your voice, but I'm not okay with justifying the behavior of the looting and rioting
Listen,
and
I'm not okay
ruin our
either, but
cities.
I'm not okay with it either. Do I want my city destroyed? No. Do I want my loved ones to be put in harm's way? No. Do I want people to be affected by their livelihood with their businesses being destroyed? No. But all of that can be replaced. An innocent life cannot be brought back. And it's been 10 years since the Black Lives Matter movement started. It's been 50 years, 60 years since Dr. Martin Luther King started his whole, movement. So how long do we have to be up against this where white men and white women and law enforcement are creating experiences for our Black brothers and sisters that cannot walk into a grocery store or a retail shop or walk down the street or and feel like they have an equal place on this planet? Like there has to be a time and a place where we say enough is enough.
And what do you think that is? What do you think the change agent is? How do we truly, as contributors of humanity, what do we do? I don't think picketing and rioting and looting and that's not going to be what it does. It's locking arms with each other.
So if that's not the answer, what is? Because if
That's what
there
I'm
was a
asking.
different solution, I feel like we would have taken it so far. It's been 10
Or
years that we've been fighting for this.
or are we just going back through the paths that we've done over the years because that's what we know to do? I'm going to look at a different side of this and I'm going to bring in faith. The guy, it's wrong. It's 100% wrong what he did to that kid. And if you look at it from the frame of reference that guy is still a child of God.
Well, okay. So if we want to talk about faith, right? Well, let's talk about the story in Scripture where Jesus walks into the church of God, into the temple, and the commoners, the people of the city, had turned it into a market and were selling things all throughout the market. And Jesus walked in rage, and he was flipping tables and throwing things, and he was like, "How dare you turn the house of my Father into this?" And you know what he did? He destroyed the temple. How is this any different? How dare you take the lives of these innocent men and women just because you feel like you can? They are seen as equals in God's eyes too.
That's right.
Jesus portrayed the
But
exact
so is
same
the
behavior.
murderer. So is the murderer. He has to pay for it. He absolutely has to speak for his sins.
But we shouldn't even be there. We should not even be in a situation where somebody is having to be convicted and tried for the murder of an innocent life. We shouldn't even be in that situation.
But yeah, here we are.
Right? So I think even in Scripture, when justified behavior comes forward, sometimes it comes forward in radical anger that causes some haywire.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the cause is getting lost? Like, do you even know what we're fighting for?
I think, Floyd, I think he is, I think the honor of his name and the honor of his death is getting lost behind some of the things that are happening in the city, because now everyone's attention is being turned to some of this radical behavior. However, it's second day here in Los Angeles, and we are now on our second day of curfews, and Santa Monica City's been shut down by 4 p.m. and there are still peaceful protests happening all throughout
until
the
dark.
city.
Until dark.
Well, correct. And So alongside some of this other radical behavior, the protests are still happening. So, you know, the fact that they're cohesively happening, I think that that's better, right? Like if it was just the looting and the vandalism and the destruction and the physical violence, and not the peaceful protests and not fighting for the Black Lives Matter movement, I think then we would be up shit's creek. But I think the fact that they're happening cohesively, that allows, you know, some real change to be possible.
I would love to hear from our viewers. You know, how do you guys feel about this? How is it affecting your life? Do you feel like the cause is getting lost? Do you feel like we're fighting for the right reasons? You know, because everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I do think that it takes a community, it takes a village, it takes us as, you know, I err on the side of a peaceful protest and loving each other and compassion and hope and faith, because I do think that there's something great going to be on the other side of this. God, for George Floyd's life, I hope so. I hope that he died for something and not for nothing. I hope that we can learn something from his life. You know, so I pray for that. I've when my husband and son were gone yesterday, I haven't prayed that long in a really long time, because, and not just for their lives, you know, they're safe. They're, whatever happens to them is in God's hands. But I prayed for it, that let them be heard. Let something good come out of this, because it cannot be for nothing. I don't want his life to mean nothing.
Well, I don't. I think at the end of the day, it won't. I think he's going to go down in history, as far as, you know, the sacrifice that was made, but the result of what is being created. You know, there's a lot of stuff, man. You know, I don't want to see this. I don't want our cities destroyed. I don't want, you know, Melrose was half burned down last night. I mean, they're breaking into businesses and stealing all this stuff. And, you know, but at some point, you know, it's the law enforcement that are fighting up against the public people. They're going to remember this in the most epic way, which means the next time that they're in a situation where it has an opportunity to go this way or this way, there's going to be a pause. And in that pause, I think that there's going to be a moment where they remember what happened the last time something like this went down. And I think that can cause real change. You create a little bit of fear, right? Because it causes you to pause. I have the fear of God in me, right? So because I have that and I have my God consciousness, whenever I'm up against something or a situation that's going on in my world, because my fear of God, because I love God so much, it creates a pause in me. Mm-hmm. And in that pause, I take a moment and I'm like, no, because either the last time I did this, this is how it turned out for me, or I'm not honoring God by this behavior. You know, so these men and women in the law enforcement, they get to have that same moment, that same pause, and say, wait a second, the last time this happened, and I'm not honoring my city, and I'm not honoring the value of human life.
And there was a young Black female cop that was killed not that long ago, like a month ago. Nobody's rioting for her death. No one's picketing for the fact that our police officers are being picked off on purpose or accidentally, color, race. Like, I don't think it matters. Her life mattered too. I don't know if you watched her funeral, but it was one of the saddest things. She had a 3-year-old son, and I lost it. Like, when you know, at the end of a funeral, they do the sign off, 10:42, she has gone home, because they do that every night when they sign off as police officers. And now, you know, they do it, and they do it when they retire too. But she was so young, and she was killed by someone of the same color. No one's writing on behalf of her life.
So I'm in agreement with that, you know, but there's still a difference. When
How?
men and women
What's
join,
the difference?
I'm explaining it to you. When men and women join the law enforcement, they join the law enforcement and they are under oath and under the understanding and the training that the possibility of something like that is very real, right? They're dealing with criminals. They're dealing with people who carry guns and kill cops. They know this.
Yeah.
When you have a black man walking down the street or taking an evening jog, or she's going home pregnant to her family, are being innocently killed and unarmed, that is a difference. That is a difference. They didn't sign up for that shit. They didn't get trained to be up against a cop that has an ego problem.
I don't think that he should be defined as all of law enforcement, though.
I
He's not.
don't think so either. That's
He
why we
doesn't
say the
represent.
1%. It's the
Yeah, he
1%.
doesn't represent all of them.
But go ahead.
Katie Knapp says, I feel the news is like I'm watching a documentary of 30 years ago.
Yeah, the 1992 LA riots. And it was part of the same problem.
Yeah. LaShonda Christmas says, yes, there is a huge difference. He explained it well. Yep. Thank you, Tina. So Brianne Leith.
Oh, it's actually popping up for me. Yeah. Brianne
Okay,
Leith.
good.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Denisa Lambert, peaceful protest and sharing one's voice, destruction and violence. No. So, like I said, everyone is entitled to an opinion. I just think that if we could err on the side of what is right, and yes, share your voice, but don't go down there ruining our city, because we're also, by the way, in the middle of a pandemic where we're already struggling. Businesses are already having a hard time keeping the doors open.
Listen,
And now
I don't disagree with that, but there have been interviews all over the LA County where people are talking about, they're interviewing some of these business owners, and there was a guy on there that was getting interviewed, and he takes his shirt and he threw it across the room. He's like, I don't care about this stuff. It's material stuff. Lives cannot be brought back. My business can come back. An insurance claim will fix me and bring me back. It's not you. There is no value on life. And if you think historically, I mean, back to, okay, let's take it back to scripture again, right? David and Goliath. This is a David and Goliath story. And at some point, David has to win, and David's going to win. But it takes a radical something to make this happen, to make this change. I think that it is so important that some of this stuff is happening. Again, do I want to see people hurt? No. Do I want to see our cities destroyed? No. But I care less about some of the stuff that's happening throughout the city and more about these innocent lives that are being taken by pompous, egocentric pricks.
But they are hurting themselves. Like, as they're picketing and as they're rioting and looting and doing all of that, they're also hurting each other. There were 3 people here in Indianapolis that died last night on Mass Avenue because they're also hurting each other. Like, these people that are out on the streets doing all this for the whatever cause that they're doing it for are also hurting each other. So is that really fighting for the right cause?
I mean, so is war, right? I mean, this is a national war that's going on right now. I don't think people are setting out for the evening to go kill their rivals, but
or kill the people who are still fighting for the same reason you're fighting for, right? But crossfire, wrong time, wrong place at the wrong time, or I just believe in going for, fighting for what is right, and empowering and going for the higher vibration versus feeding the beast. I'm not going to feed that beast and make it a larger creation of an awful story that already exists.
I don't know, man. I get it, and I semi disagree with it. I mean, it sucks, right? And it's collateral damage type stuff, But I think that, again, it's like, how long do we keep the peace? How long do you stay inside of compassion and love? How many more innocent lives have to be taken? How many more families are shattered by ignorance?
But is it working?
I guess we're going to find out.
That's my thing.
Nothing else has worked so far, so maybe it's worth an opportunity.
I just hope no more lives have to be taken because of it. I hope
I don't think
more
anybody wants that. I
no
think
more
people are
people
getting
have to
caught up.
die for
Yeah.
this on this cross and for this cause. And I get it. Like they are fully aware. They know the ramifications of what happens. Just like my husband and son did. They knew, if and they're both military, right? So they knew, if I'm going to lay across this cross and whatever happens, happens. And my life lies in the hands of the man upstairs. And if today is my day to go, then I'm going to go. And I will be at rest with it. And it's careless, like, be smart about it.
I
Yes,
love what
stand up.
Lashandra says right here. She said, people are struggling to be heard, struggling to feel understood, and struggling to get justice. Listen, even just like with the COVID virus, right? The COVID virus is affecting Black men and women at a intense degree higher than every other race. It is because those people are in some of the more lower income frontline positions where they are being subjected to this virus, right? So there's an economic demographical problem here, and that also lives inside of social justice and social equality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Black people are becoming really, I think they're getting to a point where not only are they fed up and sad and lonely and they feel segregated. I mean, how long have they had to deal with this for, and how much longer do they have to keep dealing with this, right? But when somebody is in fear, fear causes crazy emotions and crazy actions from people. They're scared and they're sad, right? And it's just manifesting in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are, I think that there, in a lot of the peaceful protests, you're seeing, all other nationalities stand up and fight for Black Lives Matter movement, and I think that's so beautiful to see. And then there's still the small amount of, radicalists inside of some of our, political parties, I'm going to say it, our president, and inside of law enforcement that are causing separation and segregation in this country. And sometimes radical behavior is the only way to make a change. So there's a huge part of me that is okay with what's happening. And then there's another part of me that wished it didn't have to come to this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I understand. I too, I just worry for the people who are down there doing it. And are you doing it? And like the question is, cause getting lost. Are we letting our anxieties around it? Are we letting our frustrations around it get the best of us and not really do it for the right reasons anymore? It is absolutely fair to fight for what we believe in. That is why we have freedom of speech. That is why that exists, but not at the cost of somebody else's life. I don't feel like that is right. How do you feel about the media? How do you feel how they are promoting what's happening and talking about what's happening, similar to what Katie was talking about earlier when you're watching the news? How do you feel like they are handling the situation, Joshua?
Um, I thought about this actually a little bit today because, John and I were watching the news last night, and depending on what network you're watching, right, they're showing a lot of the looting happening in high-end watch stores and Adidas stores, and one of the Nordstroms was looted last night. And then you hear about on a different network that a huge majority of the things that were being looted last night were grocery stores and Target food centers and things like that, where I think people were going after some of the necessities that they are struggling to get right now with where the world is with this virus and the stay-at-home orders. So it's I think yes, and if you
Twofold.
can, one girl said, if I can come down here, or if I can walk into this store and steal a $5,000 handbag, turn around and sell it to feed my family and pay my rent this month, I'm gonna do it. And it's like, whoa, dude, like we've gotten to this point where these people are, they have been so disregarded. It's just sheer being disregarded, and I think the media, dependent upon, what the backbone of the media is, they're gonna bring focus to certain things, and some things are gonna go unseen.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, but and my heart hurts. It's sad. It's sad to see, to hear these men and women saying that they don't even feel like they are safe walking down the street. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of videos, you can get on to YouTube and scroll through for 5 minutes, and I guarantee you 20% of the videos that you're going to see are black men and women filming themselves getting pulled over by law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I'm fearful for, right? Like this just has a lateral effect that is not um it forces us to live in fear. I have Black friends that are like my brothers and sisters, and I love them. The company that I work for, right? I've got families and friends inside of that company whose children are, like they're just nervous to walk down the street. And I get it, like do what's right, follow, don't break the law. But these are upstanding citizens. These are people that wouldn't be caught in those neighborhoods or doing those things. But what we're seeing is sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and stuff goes south fast and you don't have anything to do with that. You're just in that. And it could happen to a white person too, or an Asian or Mexican, whatever. Like it doesn't even matter what color we are at that point,
Yeah.
right? Bad things happen to so many good people. But I don't love the fact that I have close friends that are living in fear, and that's when I just ask for you to raise the level of faith that you have and know that you are well taken care of, and that regardless of what happens, you can't live in fear and you have to live your life to the best of your ability and how you want to live it. And know, and for me, it's like that's why you have to have something else besides what we are given on this planet, because at the end of the day, there is more to there has to be more to this. Even if I were completely wrong and off my rocker and didn't believe, Lord, this cannot be as good as it gets, because we're living in the twilight zone with a pandemic and rioting and fights and a division. And I pray and I hope that there is something better than this, because this sucks. And for the media, I came from that world. I stepped out as fast as I got in because I saw the downturn really quick. I was, like you already know, I was on the air the day of 9/11. I'm not going to be the bearer of bad news. You and I have talked about this many a times. While we're going to talk about controversial things, at the end of the day, our bottom line is love, compassion, faith, and hope. We bleed and breathe that into people at the end of the day, whether we agree to disagree or whatever that looks like. But the world is only getting harder, which means our faith has to get stronger, or we have nowhere else to turn to.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah. So LaShondra, I think you can read it. If you
Yeah.
felt constantly attacked or disrespected and disregarded, there would be a strong reaction that would eventually take place. I agree that the cause could be getting lost by folks' attention on the wrong thing. What we give energy to manifests. It gets bigger and stronger. And so I am an advocate for believing what is on the other side of whatever this is. These are the toughest times that we've ever lived through, at least in my 39 years. Don't be judging anybody out there. Like I gave it to you all straight. But in 40 years of life, this is the hardest time that I think I've ever, and we've made it through 9/11 and we've made it through 2008. It's only getting crazier. And if
Yeah.
we can either choose to err on the side of negativity or be a part of the positive and raise the vibration of the world, what that looks like for you, I don't know. Y'all are made with gifts and talents, so use them. Be a part of what takes who you are as an individual and what you were made to be, and put those to good use versus focusing on the negativity and wallowing in the sadness.
But do you understand though that there's a difference, right, between feeding into negative vibration? I mean, you talk about being an advocate for people, right? And like, I think that is why we breathe, right? We should all be advocating for each other. But at the end of the day, I'm my biggest advocate. I'm going to advocate for me first. And I think that's what's beginning to happen with this Black Lives Movement is, you know, these men and women are advocating for each other, but they're also standing up for themselves and saying enough is enough, you know? And I think that there is, it may seem like from an outsider, right? Or from like being a non-Black man and a non-Black woman, right?
Right,
that this
right.
is, that this is a negative vibration. But in the culture and in the race of Black men and women, do you think they feel a negative vibration right now? Hell no. They probably have all the positive vibrations going on. Like, we are finally standing up for ourselves. And this is enough is enough. So I don't think that this is necessarily a negative vibration, right? I think that we can choose to see this in a way that it's taking from us, right? It's putting us in danger, or it's taking away the beauty of our city. I remember last night just being like, I made a joke watching the news, like, please don't loot Bloomingdale's. It's my favorite store. Right. And then I was like, I thought about it today and I was like, what a selfish like thought, you
Yes.
know,
Right.
like loot
Don't loot
anything else, but
Macy's
just
because
not.
I'm gonna
But
go shopping
I was
there.
making an innocent joke, first
Right.
off. Second off, it made me pause and think like, loot whatever you want, man. Let's make a change. Like we got to make a difference, you know? And I don't think that it's necessarily a negative vibration or feeding into the negativity of the world. I think what's happening is that the men and women in law enforcement and men and women in politics and white men and white women and other people of race who carry social and racial judgments against people of color are getting a fucking wake up call, and they are beginning to understand the destruction of the behavior for decades, centuries, and what it has done to this race. And I think it's time to cause a little bit of fear in some of these people who are riding this higher than thou magic carpet around the cities of United States of America.
Do you not feel though that by doing that, it's causing all of us to fall into those certain buckets? I'm the least racist person on the face of the planet because I'm considered a white female at times, depending on what crowd I'm in, or an Asian female, depending if I'm with, you know, my friends of color. Like, I think it also forced, like, people are stereotyping, you know, and putting us into buckets. I don't know about you, but I don't like to be put into a bucket. I don't like to be
I've
put
been
into a
put in
box.
buckets my whole life. I think at the end of the day, that is all a choice, right? I can watch the media and see what these people are doing and see what, you know, men and women of color breaking into businesses and stealing whatever they want. I can either look at that with the eye of controversy and hate and fear and separation, or I can look at this like, look what we have caused these people to do by creating a world that they have to live in every single day because of our actions and because of the actions of the people who surround them. And instead of saying F you for doing this, we should be standing up and saying, I am sorry. Please forgive me. It's a choice. We don't have to separate and segregate. It's a choice. And I think that we have created this for them.
Katie Knapp says it's difficult to hear a 5-year-old say F you, white teacher. It starts at home, guys. It starts
100%.
at home. It starts in how we talk to our kids, in how we treat each other. You know, that's
But,
always my.
but that is where compassion comes, right? Katie is my cousin, so I know her very well.
Katie.
And she does beautiful work. She's been recognized for what she does inside of the school system. She works with children between, I believe, the ages of first and fifth grade that have behavioral problems. And so she sees, she sees some stuff, right? There also has to come a moment where when a child who's 5 years old says something like that, one, we know where that comment, what it's a derivative of, right? They're learning that behavior. They're learning those things at home. Then we have to be able to say, okay, I may not be responsible for this behavior, but they are not necessarily responsible for this behavior either. Is it right to say these things? Is it right to teach children to say these things? No. But where in this do white people and people of other races that have a negative racial agenda inside of them, when do we start taking responsibility? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was watching an interview the other day, and this girl was like, do you feel like that? The interviewer was like, do you feel like that there's a black equality issue around you? And these two young girls kind of looked at each other and they both agreed no. And then the interviewer says, but would you even know because you're white? Like, we have to be able to take responsibility for the unseen.
And I think we both have a responsibility. I think all races have their own responsibility.
Agree. But if there is,
I'm not, as a white person,
movement,
erring on the white person side of this, I'm not going to take full responsibility for being a racist because I'm not.
But but as white people, we can take responsibility for the collective whole. The compassion and the understanding is the fact that we as a race have created this world for these people. And that's not where it's like, but wait, I didn't enslave your ancestors. Well, no, but as a race, we have, right? I mean, they have proven through epigenetics that feelings of fear, right? Like they even did a study on black men and women that are afraid of swimming and afraid of dogs, just naturally ingrained with this fear was because it was passed down ancestrally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So who's to say that some of these feelings that they're carrying from their ancestors being enslaved aren't real feelings? Not
mm-hmm.
just, oh, I know what your ancestors did to my ancestors and now it's a turf war. No, mm-hmm. There could literally be things instilled in them because of what has been passed down genetically through their ancestors. And we know this now to be true. It's the craziest, some of the craziest research I've ever read. I think it's time that we just start saying, I'm sorry, start taking responsibility and start fighting for these people. That's
and I think it's time that we stop creating division with each other and start locking arms and start being in favor of individuals for each other as a human race, not being in division of color. I don't see color. I don't. And yes, I'm not in disagreement. I'm sorry. The sun keeps like fading me in and out. So if I disappear, that's what happened. But I believe that we can come together as one race, as children.
Okay, so let's just get really honest, right? And maybe this is just me, but I'm gonna put it out there because I feel like I'm being led to say it. I'm ashamed that this lives in me, but I do have some racial judgments. I can't tell you that I don't watch the news and see gang violence in the streets and have a feeling of, fucking thugs, or I see something, I have them. I don't want to have them.
We all have them.
But we need to stop pretending like we don't have them.
Right.
And we need to start understanding that the behavior that some of the different races throughout the world exude and exhibit are because of the oppression and the environment and the circumstances that have been created around them.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start taking responsibility.
100%. So LaShondra says it's hard to hear you, F you, and then the N word, go back to your country. What? Like you were born here. Like this is your country. Like it just makes me want to spew fire at the thought that people say things to them like this. Like I just hate it for them.
Yeah.
Lashandra says not seeing color is actually a disadvantage. We should see color and respect what we do see. I get that. I 100% get
I
that.
agree.
But I'm not like,
Not when it comes with judgment, though.
right. Like, yes, at the underneath, what I see is we are all children of God. Whether you believe that or not, I believe that we are all created equal, all of those things. And I think we're beautiful inside of whatever color whatever belief that we have. I'm oftentimes discriminated against because I'm a Christian. And people are like, you shove religion down my throat. And I am the least, like, I maybe not years ago, but I'm not trying to shove religion down anybody's throat. I want people to find their faith because it's a very personal thing.
Yeah. I think,
Spirituality
listen,
is
man,
individuality. Keep talking,
the
Joshua.
the reality is this, right? I think everybody on the planet in some way or another suffers from some sense of oppression, judgment, or inequality, right? I'm a gay man, okay? I know what it feels like to have feelings of inequality and feelings of oppression and having slurs thrown at me from strangers who don't even know who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like I have racial judgments against me for being white, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they anywhere near what black men and women have to face? No. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know what it feels like to be judged by the color of my skin. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Women are up against an
That's a
equally
whole nother
important,
talk.
yeah, but it's equally as important, and it's another movement that's happening right now, right? It's one of the reasons why we have the Me Too movement, right? So
Yep.
there's a lot of really big things that are beginning to get highlighted, and quite honestly, all of this is in alignment to what's happening energetically and spiritually with our country right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a calling for people to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
We're waking up. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, I've talked about this in a previous episode. It's actually really fun to read about. You can look up stuff around the topic of it's called the extinction boom. And an extinction boom is sometimes something really radical comes into play before it finally goes away, right? I think Trump
Mm-hmm.
is an extinction boom, right? We needed I call him the accelerator. I think he's so ugly and he's so gross, and for what he stands for is so unfair that he is causing people to be like, hold up, wait a minute, let me put some 2 cents in it. This ain't right. It's not right. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these movements that are going on right now with the Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement and, gay marriage and, yada, yada, yada. All of these things matter. But I think finally people are just like, wait a second, enough is enough. And I think that what's really happening is we're going to start seeing the integration of some of these movements and some of these people of color and these people of oppression and these people of inequality starting to merge together and fight for each other's causes. And I think that we are going to be locking arms. I mean, you're seeing it. Yes, you're seeing some ugly stuff in the media right now, but we're also seeing some really beautiful things where white men and white women are standing side by side fighting for what matters.
Mm-hmm. Do you see what Jody wrote? I love this.
Yeah. We need to take responsibility for what our race has created without guilt and shame, without turning judgment towards ourselves. Yes. But
We were raised in it.
well, but
And you
I
don't know
had
what
I
you don't
had
know till you realize you
grandparents.
know it.
I wasn't raised in a racially judging family,
Well,
you
no,
know,
but you didn't have it
but I
happen
had
at school.
grandparents that were extremely racist.
School,
Yes,
teachers,
media.
media. I mean, it's everywhere all the time, and you can't help but pick up some of what's happening. Like, and it feels awful. It's super crappy. Yes, 100% guilty. I think we're all guilty of it at times. And to the point where sometimes it's subconscious, you don't even realize that you're being that way. And like you said, like this is the age of acknowledgement. We've talked about it in other episodes where, like, you're right. This is 100% of the awakening. Can we as individuals make a choice to do something different?
And you know how we do that? We start using our voices. We start aligning to the feeling of love and the feeling of compassion and empathy. And the biggest thing that we can do is start taking responsibility, because when you can take responsibility for the behavior that is being exuded by some of these men and women right now as a result of oppression from the general whole of a race that has caused them to feel separate from, if you can take responsibility, then you can start having compassion. And when we can change anger and fear into the feeling of compassion, then we are going to start making some real strides in this country.
Do you think that those that we have been racist against will want to join and lock arms with us?
Yes.
Do you think that they will forgive
Yes.
for what has
Yeah,
happened, and that they
I
would be
have to
willing?
believe that. I have
But
to
I want
believe
to
that
believe that.
because
I'm just asking.
you
I'm
just,
asking our
I
viewers.
think I think that again is choice. I think it just as easy as saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. With some, yes. With others, they're probably going to want to see some action, right? Don't just come at me with a, I'm sorry, right? Because if there's no change in the behavior, then it's just manipulatism.
Mhm.
We're just manipulating them. If there's no action and no change in the behavior, a consistent I'm sorry is just manipulation.
Mhm.
We have to stop manipulating these people because we don't want to be seen as racist, or we don't want people to think that we are creating this world for them, but we are.
Mhm.
So there has to be some change in behavior. And some of that behavior change are things like what's going on right now in our country. And so, yes, I think this causes for some, I think this causes for some real bonding between people of color and white people.
Mhm.
It's
I like
crazy,
what.
man. I couldn't believe in some of the protesting that we've driven past and that we've seen out here. It is really almost 50-50.
Yeah. It's supposed. I mean, it's supposed to get worse tonight. Here where they're calling in military and things like that. So
Same here.
I just pray that it's peaceful. I pray
Yeah.
that they feel heard, and I pray that if you are not going to be a part of it, you stay away from it. If you choose not to do that, stay safe and stay out of regard so that you're not hurt in any way. Because I do believe we're all at choice. I'm not going to hate on somebody for not speaking their voice. If you don't have anything that you can advocate, that you can say that makes sense to add to the cause, don't say anything. Right? Like I just
No,
don't say
don't say
something.
anything. You know, an action can be a quiet action, right?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
really one of the things that needs to happen first is that we need to be willing to do some inner research. Why do I feel this way? What has it come from? Am I scared of something? Am I fearful of something? Were there experiences in my world where somebody of color made me feel less than, or made someone in my family feel less than? Was there a TV show that I watched? Was there a book that I read? We have to be able to pinpoint when this moment happened. And I think that's self, exploring oneself, right? I think it matters. So if you don't know how to fight internally first,
I like
because
that.
that's when we can bring love and compassion to the table. And then when
Mhm.
you have love and compassion and you're seeing things from a neutral standpoint, then you might be able to see yourself in a physical action fighting for a cause.
Mhm.
You know, that's why,
Absolutely.
I haven't given in my recent past, I haven't given much action to the Black Lives Matter movement because I have more connection to women and their fight. Women have owned my life. I'm obsessed with women, though I don't want to have sex with any of them. I love
We don't want
women.
you to.
I love camaraderie with women. I love, I just connect with them. I love women. I'm obsessed with them.
I'm sorry,
You
that's
know,
so funny.
but it's true. So
Hey,
my
and I'm gonna need you to stay away
connection,
from my husband, okay?
right? But here's the reality. So women have always made me feel good, and I always make women feel good.
Yeah.
So this connection is what caused me to be in the front lines of fighting for women's rights and women's equality, right? I also have to be able to recognize that one of the reasons why I did not put Black Lives Matter and Black lives on the front line of my fight, right, or my advocacy, is because I have some stuff in here that I'm not proud of.
As we
And
all
it's
do.
not, I'm not like, I don't run around the streets like, joining the KKK and saying things, but I have them. They're just little glimpses, little thoughts where a negative feeling is justified when I see poor behavior, right? Just like with people of color, with white people, we at some point have to be able to neutralize that
Mm-hmm.
and understand. And the only way to do that is the fight within.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, this whole experience over the past couple of days. I mean, I remember marching 10 years ago, for Trayvon. And I've always been wildly interested in, the peaceful protests back in the 1960s, in the segregation movement and equal rights. And I've always had a passion and a love for that. But I was never in action around it. I just loved the history behind it. I loved the stories, the empowering stories, and how they made me feel and things like that. So even in looking historically at the movement of Black people through, racial inequality, I'm still using their story for selfish reason because it empowers me to feel good. I
That's a
have
good
to,
point.
I got to do something to empower these men and women to feel good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to change the script. And the only way to do that is to get really honest with ourselves. I don't think I've ever said some of these things out loud. And here I am saying it in front of hundreds of people.
Well, Lashandra, I just love you, girl. Thank you for
I
being
know. It's
here
so
today.
cute that her last name is Christmas. Her
I
profile
know.
picture, she literally looks like Christmas. She's so cute.
Isn't she beautiful?
Yes.
Her and her family are absolutely gorgeous. I went to high school with Lashandra, and she says, yes, honesty with oneself. Whoa. Like that's really the first action that needs to be taken. What are our internal beliefs? What do we actually feel about this?
Yes.
And are you willing to do something about the way that you feel about it? And I don't care if you're, picketing or if you're down there, advocating for this or whatever. Could it look like you're reaching out to the people in your own world and saying, I'm here for you. I love you. What do you need from me?
And some of that may be reach out to your Black brothers and sisters and tell them, let's get honest with each other and ask them about how it feels to be a person of color walking down the street. Let's listen to some of their stories. Let's empathize and have compassion for some of the things that they feel walking into a retail store and being followed around when they're just trying to pick up a pair of jeans. Let's listen to some of these stories about how, oppression has caused them to feel this way, because when we can shed light on the darkest parts of our lives and the darkest parts of the lives of the people who we love, when we can shed light on those things, and
Mm-hmm.
then we can begin to see them. And when we can begin to see them and we have different understandings of them, then the story starts to change and evolve, right? And sometimes that can just be simply a prayer, like, God, change my heart,
Mm-hmm.
change my mind, give me creative solutions around being able to be in action around this in my personal world, that I may be a change in the world.
Well, and I like what you said, shed some light, but shed some light and then be the light.
Yes.
What can I do to empower, to show compassion, to love, to raise the vibration around look, don't cause a second storm. You can still be an advocate. You can still speak largely and be an advocate for what is happening. You just don't have to create the chaos around it.
Yes.
People will
Listen,
still hear you.
if you think about it, let's look at AA, right? Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's talk about Catholicism. Let's talk about some of these major places of transformation, right? What's the first thing you do when you want to get right with God? When in the religion of Catholicism, you go confess your sins, right? In AA, right? The first step is admitting that you are powerless to this behavior. And then you make a moral inventory, or you make an inventory of everything that you've ever done, and you go share it with a brother or sister in the program. It's confession, right? We have to get honest about the way that we see this world and about the things that we feel and have thoughts around, that we might begin to have discovery conversations with these people to be able to understand their stories, their background, and their feelings of oppression, that we can then bring some love and compassion into this, that we can change the way that all of this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
We have to.
Jody McDonald Williams says, when you speak up for someone you see being discriminated against, it must be in love and understanding. I must be in a way that expresses to them what they are creating in the world so that they can learn and understand. Not because you want to defend one person, but because it is creating the world you want to live in. And then be ready to move on if that person does not want the world you want to live in. It's about enrolling.
Yes.
What I heard her
Yes.
say is that's about enrolling.
Think about this too, right? I love what she just said. And yes, 100%. Some of the times that I feel the most appreciated or the most understood or the most loved is when people in my world are in discovery with me, right? What made you want to do this? You know, how did you get to this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel valued because somebody is taking the time to want to find out something more about me, right? Do you understand the shift that we could the vibration and the ripple that we could begin to change or cause in this world by asking people of color what it feels like to be in their shoes? I just want to understand you. I want to understand what it may feel like to be you, so that I can begin to raise my desire around advocating and fighting for you. Can you help me understand and share with me some stories?
Yeah.
You know, or share with me your feelings. I would have to imagine that would make some of our, you know, our brothers and sisters feel really appreciated.
Yeah, I think so too. And I love this conversation. Thank you, Joshua, for being the invitation to have a hard conversation live on social media. I
You
hope
know
that
me.
I know. I'm ripping and roaring through my household, but it feels good to be able to share some of this. My heart feels a little lighter because I know that while we may not agree on all aspects of this, at the end of the day, we love humanity and we love each other. And we want to be advocates and be the change agents to do something to help
Yeah.
our brothers and sisters who are experiencing this loss, who feel less than. I never want them to
Yeah.
feel less than. I can remember watching movies, To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm 8 years old and I'm bawling all over the place. Like, my parents probably thought I was nuts because I just cannot imagine like a world where that exists, except that it does, except that it's real, you know, and there are people that feel that way.
Yeah.
And then I experienced it for the very first time myself when I was in school and got questioned and it doesn't even have to be around race. It could have been around having
Body
big
types.
boobs or body types or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You take these masks and you take the things that people say and you make them your own, and then you begin to operate around what you think the world wants you to be, and imagine that being magnified at that level of
Yeah.
discrimination and division. I'm just not on par with that.
You know,
We
these
don't have to work so hard for the divide. It's already
you're
there.
extremely right in saying, you know, these conversations are hard to have. It was hard for me to sit here and say some of the things that I've said tonight, but I also feel invigorated. I feel like I've had 2 cups of coffee. I
I have.
am I feel my vibration has, I'm quite sure that's probably wine, let's get real.
No, it's coffee.
My vibration is
That was earlier. I'm just kidding.
has been raised by having this conversation. Things that other people have commented on tonight and some things that you've said have either solidified a thought for me or changed a thought for me. And you know, I feel a little bit more empowered to do something. I feel empowered to stand up for these people. Um, I will always invite difficult conversations because I have a lot of experience around difficult conversations creating freedom in my world.
Mhm.
And so now, instead of being fearful of them, I will just throw myself into it and just put the truth out there, because I have more evidence of that being a success in my world than pretending like something's not happening, pretending like I don't feel a certain way, and pretending like some of these things don't matter. Right.
Right.
So if
It's
this
called the truth
conversation,
revival for a reason.
that's right. So if this conversation, if you and I are the vehicles that can invite a difficult conversation to be had like this, and it shifts the mind or the heart of just one person, then it was an investment that was unbelievably well worth it.
I agree. Can you
So
give a short, for the people who joined later, can you give a short preview of what we're talking about next weekend?
yeah, we're actually going to have Amber Crockett, who is also my sister, on. She is the creator and head of Amber Blends, which is an essential body care line, really well known throughout the Indianapolis area, the Carmel area. She has her business has now gone international, in over 650 boutiques nationwide. And we are going to I'll actually be home on Sunday to do this video with her live in the kitchen. We're going to be talking about some holistic approaches to healthcare, some things people could be doing at home to keep their immune system strong, some things that she loves to do, the background and the movement behind Amber Blends. She never borrowed $1 to start this business. I remember when she would mix these ingredients in her basement and send me to beauty school with samples to hand out to friends. And now she has this, wildly successful business. So it'll just be cute. It's going to be lighthearted. It's going to be fun. There'll be a learning opportunity in there. I think people, my sister is, she's a high energy. She's a joy to be around all the time. She's just, it should just really be a fun episode to do. And she's also going to be talking about, I think possibly a new product that might be coming our way. And they just got new packaging on
They did.
another product that has created some ease with some ongoing issue that they had been having. So I know she's excited to talk and hang out, and I know she's excited to see you. So it should be a really good episode. Be nice and easy. And that's going to be next Sunday at 7 p.m. And I'll be local.
I can't wait. I'm super excited to see you. I miss you. And you know how much I love your sister. I actually knew your sister before I knew you. That's how I know God has a sense of humor. And
And I won.
He's so intentional and he's so purposeful in bringing the things full circle, because here you are front and center in my life, and I'm super thankful. And it is like one of the most smelling good things I get more compliments. If you haven't tried it, you should. I give it to everybody as gifts.
I get stopped everywhere I go.
And it's for men and women. So I could literally talk about your sister like all day, because I love it so much. I've been wearing it for years. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight and being a part of our show. I know it's been a couple weeks. We've been a little inconsistent between our schedules and things, but way to kick it off and to come back with a bang around something that's very relevant. And hopefully you guys found some benefit out of it. Joshua and I are each available individually. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to have further conversation around this. If there's anything that we could do for you to help support through this, we're here for you.
I love you.
I love you too.
All right, man. This was a good show. I'm glad we had it. I'm glad we switched it up. It was. I think it's worth it.
And I can't wait to hear from John too. All the dogs.
Yes, all the dogs.
All right, you guys have an awesome week.
Show.
Take care.
You guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.